detachment to this extremism.
It will never happen.
It will never happen. So as an Englishman, see, this is why I say we have to stop Islam. We don't have to stop extremist Islam. We don't have to stop radical Muslims. We have to stop Islam in the UK. And that.
One man walked into this interview and said the quiet part out loud. Not just the extremists returning from Syria, stopping Islam's influence in Britain entirely. Across the table sits Imam Tawhidi, the cleric the West calls a reformer. Watch him admit that reformation will never happen. Watch him call for Britain's Sharia courts to be dismantled. And watch the interviewer press him on Saudi money and halal certification. 2 men, 1 table, and almost no comfortable answers left. Let's get into it.
I'll say from my point of view, you've become the first religious imam that has come out and said what I think many of the times needs to be said. You talk about taking violent passages out of the scripture. You challenge the scripture. And it's really, because we first had contact when I was leading the English Defence League. And even when we had that contact then, I was surprised, if I'm honest, because I'm leading the biggest street protest movement against Islam at the time. Every Muslim leader was very critical. You wasn't. More so, you sort of reached out at that time, talking openly, yeah.
Indeed. I travelled to Iran, where I was born originally, but we migrated to Australia. I went back to Iran in 2006, and I engaged in my studies. And during my studies, I saw a lot of corruption within the political system of how the Islamic governments control the students and what they study, which at the end leads to missionaries coming to the West from these Islamic governments, being trained and funded. And I was once upon a time one of these missionaries that would be sent around the world to Canada and so on to preach Sharia law, spreading the caliphate under different names, Islamic government and even Sharia courts and so on.
Listen to what he just admitted. He was trained to be sent west as a missionary, funded by an Islamic government, sent to Canada to preach Sharia law under softer names. That is not a line from a tabloid front page. That is an imam describing his own job offer. The interviewer has been saying this for a decade and getting called a liar for it.
So right now as an imam, what are you fighting for? Reformation of Islam?
I say reformation of Islam, but in reality I know very well there will never be a reformation.
You know very well there'll never be a reformation.
There will never be a reformation of Islam.
I'm glad you said that.
But we will need to pave the way for a potential reformation in a few centuries' time.
So when we hear that, from my point of view, because we have so many reformist Muslims in the UK, such as Majid Nawaz and Quilliam, who basically, this is a massive career for them. And they're selling a lie that we will reform Islam in the next generation. And it's like we've had 1400 years, it's not reformed. When someone's tried to reform it, we've had Wahhabists, Abdul Wahhab, who tried to reform Islam, and we brought it back to the core, what I say is violent teachings. But you don't see there is any opportunity or any chance to reform.
There it is. 4 minutes in, the reformation everyone in Westminster is banking on? The Imam says it is never happening. Not in this generation, and not in the next. The interviewer names the people selling it. Quilliam and a reform industry that 1400 years never delivered. When the reformer himself says reform is off the table, what exactly is Britain's policy?
See, the problem is, we see the opposite though. On the ground in the UK, the first generations that come were not extreme. The extreme, in fact, every generation we go through in the British Muslim community, they get worse and worse. Their views and their intolerance gets worse. And that's, by any Pew research or any research, it shows that actually, even for example, it's the youngsters now, the majority of terrorist attacks now are 17 to 24-year-olds. That's the majority of arrests, and now youngsters. And that we've seen that change over the last 20 years, from being elder Muslims to then going into the youngsters. So for us to think, I've said so many times, what we need is a worldwide revolution within the Islamic community to get rid of the hatred. But that's not what we see. So, you know, say I'm an Englishman, and should I sit here, or should our country sit here and gamble on the chance? What do you think the realistic opportunity is for there to be a revolution, or for there to be a mass uprising from Muslim youth who are going to throw away their detachment to this extremism?
It will never happen.
It will never happen. So as an Englishman, See, this is why I say we have to stop Islam. We don't have to stop extremist Islam. We don't have to stop radical Muslims. We have to stop Islam in the UK. And that.
Watch that sequence, because it is surgical. The interviewer lays out the arrest data. Terror suspects are getting younger, not older. 2,000 Britons came back from fighting for ISIS. Then he asks the only question that matters. Is there any realistic chance of a revolt from within? The answer comes back in 4 words. It will never happen. Keep that in mind, because his policy list is coming next: Saudi money, Sharia courts, and the benefits system.
I'm a father of 3. When I look at what previous forefathers done in this nation to protect and preserve a safe and prosperous Britain for the next generation of children, we're sitting by and hiding behind political correctness to sit here and watch as last year 2,000 British Muslims returned from fighting for ISIS. We're just sitting here like sitting ducks, and that's why. So I have to. What would you do if you was an Englishman, if you was a non-Muslim, sitting in a country that's ravaged by Islam, that's seen 3 brutal terrorist attacks in the last 12 months, 4, killing children, killing women, sitting eating dinner, stabbed in the neck. We've seen all of this. We've seen 12 prevented. What would you do?
I wouldn't blame you for any of the opinions you hold. And probably I would have the same stance and position towards such an ideology. However, we need to be very realistic. We could sit down and discuss and talk and share emotions and even propose certain things in parliaments and draft bills, but if we're not realistic, we're not going to be reaching a result. And this is how I am very different from many people that I sit with. We need to be realistic. Now, you want to stop Islam. Islam's never going to stop.
No, okay, I want to stop its influence in Britain.
You're never going to be able to. Let me tell you why. As much as I want to stop the radicals in Sydney, in Australia, it's very difficult, and this is why. Let's look at the Jewish community. The Jewish community, for tens of centuries, they've been persecuted, massacred and killed. They never had a government to protect them before Israel. They don't have Sharia law tables in the streets and in the city calling people to Judaism, dawah. In fact, when a Jewish man wants to marry a lady and she decides to convert into Judaism, it's a very hard process for her to become Jewish. And amongst all of these problems, Judaism still exists, and there are many Jewish people out there. It's not easy to take a religion and just hope for it to vanish or stop it. It doesn't work like that. Especially when you look at the statistics and how much they are growing and the children they are having.
Notice what happens when the question gets hard. The interviewer asks him a father's question. What would you do if this were your country? The Imam says he would feel exactly the same. Then he pivots to realism. And realism, in his hands, becomes a history lesson about Jewish survival. Nobody asked him to make a religion vanish. The question was about influence, foreign funding, and British law. That is the dodge, and it is a polite one.
Most Muslim families, in fact, most Middle Eastern families, mostly the Muslim of them, amongst them, drive vans and big cars. Why? Because
6, 7 kids.
Exactly.
Is that a fluke? Is that a fluke? Or is that population jihad?
Look, my mother has 11 siblings. She's number 12, and one of them died from one mother and one father. When you're dealing with such a mentality that says, hey, lots of children is a beautiful thing in life.
Is that the reason? That's the point I'm making. Is that the reason, or is it literally population rise in order to conquer areas?
I will tell you this. Before the government of Saudi Arabia and before the influence of the Iranian Revolution, it was very normal, and it would be seen cultural, it's a national practice for certain countries to have families to have lots of children.
It was for the Irish as well.
But now, I do believe that there are actually political movements behind that.
Okay.
To actually fund families that have lots of children.
Yeah.
And we see that in Ahwaz, in Iran, between Iran and southern Iraq.
In order to change the demographics,
region, yes.
so they have control of that area.
And they're funded by the Saudis funded by the Saudis. Father, don't worry, we'll take care of your children.
We'll take care of everything.
Just make children.
Make children, yeah.
And there is the concession the interviewer wanted. He asks whether large families are culture or something planned. The Imam says it used to be culture, the same as it was for the Irish. Then he says the quiet part. There are political movements funding it now. He points to Afaz on the Iran-Iraq border, where families are paid to grow, foreign money, aimed at changing who lives where. The interviewer did not have to argue that one.
Yeah, because we see the same. You know when you say there's not much we could do, say for example to halt that in the UK, all we'd have to do is stop the benefits for more than 2 children. And that would pretty instantly stop the ability for people to have, say for example my local imam, Kadir, yeah? He has 3 wives and 14 children, yeah, that we pay for. So, and there's so many Muslim families like that across the UK, but we're paying for it. If we didn't have a benefit system that gave them and provided for that, they wouldn't be in a position to do it unless Saudis pulled out their wallets, which they probably would as well. But when you say there's not much we can do to halt it, I think there is. I think we could be stopping Muslim immigration into the UK. I think we could halt the benefit system for more than 2 children. We could stop any Saudi or Iranian or Qatari money coming into this country. We can outlaw all aspects of Sharia law in the UK. We can make it. If someone wants to be a peaceful, kind Muslim, fine. You live your life in Britain, we welcome you. If you want to be a radical extremist, then we need to make your life absolutely impossible. So that, and I said that's where I see as, because you're right, you have to be realistic in it. Realistically, we have 3 million, 4 million, probably more like 6 million Muslims in the UK. Do I want to deport every one of them? No, of course I don't. Some of the best people I've met growing up in my hometown have been Muslim. But we do have to limit the influence that this ideology has on our country. And if people don't, when you say, if people don't want to live under freedom and democracy, they can leave.
Indeed.
They can leave.
I agree.
That is the clearest policy list anyone has put on camera in years. End child benefit past 2 children. Stop the Gulf money coming in. Outlaw Sharia law in Britain. And he draws the line himself. Peaceful neighbors are welcome, radicals are not. He even says he does not want anyone deported. Every outlet that calls this man an extremist skipped that sentence. The Imam's reply? He agrees. Then he starts explaining why none of it can be done.
Now, cutting the funding and so on, do you really think that's realistic?
As in the sense of because they own so much of our country?
Yeah.
Am I right? I think Saudis own every port in the UK. They own the percentage of the stock market. But that's when you come to the point of basically they've bought our country. They've bought our legally they've bought our country. They own Westfield Shopping Centre. They own Harrods. They own the majority of London. And but that is that is something where our politicians have sold our land and sold our people out. So the British public would halt their money tomorrow. And if that meant having less money in your paycheck at the end of the month, we'd have less money. If that meant entering into a recession, we'd enter into a recession. We don't want blood money in our country, which is what we have. Mm-hmm. So what do you not think that's realistic then?
I think it is a realistic vision, but to implement it, it's a whole different story. I don't think the UK government would be willing to cut ties with Saudi Arabia and Qatar that owns many mansions within the UK, massive buildings in very prominent locations. I don't think
they've bought their way. They've bought our country.
This is the stretch that gets him called a conspiracist. So check it. The Saudi Wealth Fund holds British ports and stock. Qatar owns Harrods in Knightsbridge. Westfield, mansions, prime London postcodes, all bought legally. His point is not that it was theft. His point is that our politicians sold it. Then comes the line about blood money. He would take a recession over Gulf cash. Watch the Imam refuse to argue with a single fact in that list.
Therefore, I think we need to start from a whole different angle. Instead of going after the finance, look, any radical in the UK can write a book. A man sitting in Saudi Arabia can buy 1 million copies of that book. And that's how the transaction is made, through royalties. It doesn't really need to be through embassies.
Okay.
You can't stop money from coming from A to B. They can send you a lady wearing lots of gold, and then she gives you the gold. No tax in airports, it's her jewelry. There are many methods these people use, and trust me, this is their field.
They're already doing all of that.
They know how to scam the system. They know all the loopholes. I think what we need to do is take down these Sharia courts that you have.
Yep.
Sharia courts and this scam of halal certification.
You're against halal certification?
Yes, I'm not against halal food.
You're against the certification which generates the money which then propagates and supports terrorism.
These two main wings of the Muslim community in the UK, the Sharia courts, which have no legitimacy whatsoever on this land to begin with. It goes against the constitution.
Why do you think our government have allowed them?
Governments are a combination of organizations that need money. What makes a government? Several organizations put together, and they need money to survive.
Here is the shape of every answer he gives. Yes, your vision is realistic. No, it cannot be implemented. Money moves through book royalties. Gold walks through the airport as jewelry. All true, and all beside the point. Nobody said enforcement was easy. But watch where he lands when he is finally cornered. Shut the Sharia courts and kill the halal certification racket. The interviewer has been demanding exactly that for years.
Are you surprised when you come to the UK, when you drive through London? Are you surprised just how many the restaurants and everything is halal? Has that surprised you, or was you expecting entire areas?
Allow me to say one thing. I cancelled 22 Uber requests yesterday because the drivers were Muslim.
You cancelled them. Is that because you're scared?
Yes.
And just to get, I didn't make that point at first, because of your outspokenness, because you have people wanting to kill you and murder you.
Yes. And
there's been people arrested, am I right?
Yes, they've been arrested.
In Australia?
In Australia.
For planning to murder you?
Attacking me.
And you was
charged
attacked?
Of assault, yes.
Someone do with your car, if I remember?
Yes, my car's been vandalised, ISIS all over it.
ISIS.
There's currently a court case going on.
He cancelled 22 rides in one day. He says it was not hate, but fear. This is the Imam the papers call a self-promoter, describing a car sprayed with ISIS graffiti. Australia arrested people over the plot to kill him. That is the price of saying it out loud. The interviewer has been paying it for a decade.
I had a disagreement the other day with a young Muslim who was telling me that it doesn't say in the Quran anywhere to kill innocents. And I said, but then we get down to the word innocence, or we get down to who's innocent. And we have, do you know Ibn Kathir? Ibn Kathir, who's one of the world's most recognised Islamic scholars, who simply says that disobedience, so in the verse, say 533, where it says kill those who cause corruption or disobedience. Disobedience simply means being non-Muslim. So that simply gives fair game to anyone who follows his teachings, which is the majority of the Sunni world, to go out and kill non-Muslims because they're non-Muslims, because they're disobeying Allah by not believing in Him. So what you want to do, what you want to introduce, or what you see as a solution to the problems we're in, how do you see that's possible at that level?
Firstly, you quoted Ibn Kathir. Yeah. Ibn Kathir is the biggest ideological terrorist we have ever seen in the history of Islamic scripture. Ibn Kathir, Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, all of them are terrorists. Bukhari...
Terrorists in your view, but the majority of British Muslims who follow the Sunni sect would be idolising them.
It's got nothing to do with Sunni sect.
No?
Bukhari has even influenced the supreme leader of Iran, the Shia.
Okay.
Stop and hear what just happened. The interviewer quotes verse 533 and Ibn Kathir's gloss on it. The Imam does not soften it. He calls Ibn Kathir the biggest ideological terrorist in Islamic scripture. Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, the whole shelf. Those are the texts sitting in mosques and schools across this country. Every time someone says this is a fringe reading, remember an Imam said it first.
And taking the hadith is not untouchable. The hadith is untouchable. It is touchable. You can remove it. All of it.
You'd remove all the hadiths?
Most of them, yes.
Because they are messed up.
Yes, most of them, yes.
And a lot, yeah.
Look at Bukhari.
Yeah.
Bukhari came 200 years after Muhammad.
He was a historian.
A historian, a scholar for dollar, a blind man who never saw Muhammad, never lived with him, And also not even an Arab, he doesn't read Arabic. He's from Bukhara, from Persia. And he wrote in detail the sexual life of Prophet Muhammad. How the hell did you know? How did you know?
You're on about him stating that he had sex with Aisha when she was 9.
Look, Aisha wasn't 9 or 6.
No, Shias do not accept that, right?
No, no one accepts that. This is
Well, you know what I ask imams?
Yeah.
Any imams I've met, I ask that question because something for me would be very difficult for anyone who follows Islam is accepting that the true messenger of God come down and married a 6-year-old child and had sex with her when she was 9.
This is where he goes further than any imam on British television. Remove the hadith, most of it gone. And his reason is the one skeptics have been shouting for years. Bukhari wrote 2 centuries after Muhammad died. He never met the man he wrote about. He was not even an Arab, yet he documented the Prophet's sex life in detail. Then comes the Aisha question, and the Imam refuses the 9-year-old narration outright.
because look, there's another political aspect to it.
You're going to get absolutely slaughtered for this, you realise this?
Let me finish. Or if I'm going to get slaughtered, then I might as well finish. There is another argument to it. The wife of Muhammad needs to be pure because she will be spreading much of the religion after him. And also, she's a political figure. You cannot sell the idea or the lie that Gabriel came onto Muhammad and showed him a picture from heaven if she wasn't a virgin. Like, at least she has to be on the level of Virgin Mary.
First time I've ever heard this.
But this is the question, why is it that the majority of Muslims would like to paint this glorious image of Muhammad's wife, Aisha, but not do that for his own mother? Why? Because his mother, she died and there's no political benefits in doing that for her. But Aisha, the more sacred we can make her look, the better it is for the religion. It's all politics.
It's all lies.
He warned him, "You are going to get slaughtered for this." And the Imam said, "Finish the point anyway." The argument is that Aisha's age was engineered backwards to protect an image of purity. That is politics dressed as scripture. Then the interviewer asks the obvious follow-up. Why glorify Aisha and never the Prophet's own mother? Because there was nothing political to gain. 4 words close it out. It is all lies.
This will be a question that I have to ask you anyway, because most people who sit on my side of the fence, or I've read the comments, many people think you're great in the sense that finally we have an imam who accepts there's violent verses instructing people to kill us. He accepts all of these things. If I ask, if you accept that from the Quran, why are you still a Muslim?
Firstly, the Quran itself, to me and to many like me. So if you were to ask me how many Muslims think like you, I would say in the millions. Less than 5 million. How many think exactly like you, your opinions and everything? 500,000. Where are they based? Mainly in the Middle East. Do we have prominent figures that come out and speak? Yes, we do. What's the problem? They don't speak in English, so you don't hear of them.
That is the question the whole internet asks him. You admit the violent verses and the incitement to murder. So why are you still a Muslim? And listen to the arithmetic in his answer. Millions think roughly like him. 500,000 share his exact reading of the Quran, out of nearly 2 billion. He has just told you how small the reform camp is, and he said it without blinking.
What we believe as religious people. Coming back to my belief why I'm still a Muslim.
Yep.
I told you that the Quran for us is a book of history, a book of developments, it's not a book that orders me to go and kill people every single day. We read it differently.
It orders some to, though.
Orders who?
Some people take.
The majority, not some. The majority.
The majority.
Because they read it that way.
Okay, yeah.
The hadiths for us, not a problem, at the window. Whatever doesn't, look, if I open a book of hadith and I find the problem in the book, the problem is with the book, not with my brain. My brain is perfect.
Okay.
So for me, if a book tells me that in order for my wife to learn how to perform a ritual washing, she needs to undress in front of another man, and he teaches her, no, the whole book goes out the window. That's not going to happen. Or it tells me that my prophet, for example, slept with 11 wives, 9 or 11 in one night. What was he doing the rest of the time? Is he a prophet, or what is he? Is he running a, it's something we don't believe. Out the window, straight away.
Right there is the exchange of the whole interview. The Imam says the Quran does not order him to kill. The interviewer answers in 5 words. It orders some to, though, and the Imam corrects him upward. Not some, the majority. He just conceded that most readers read it that way. Then he throws the hadith out the window, over one passage about a wife undressing for another man.
2 things that I'd like to say to answer your question. 1, the people in your government right now are not qualified to lead at all. So from the lowest form of government, which is the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, up to Theresa May.
You're not a fan of Sadiq Khan?
No, I wouldn't have him manager of McDonald's, let alone mayor of London. I'm not joking. I'm honest. I would not have him manager of McDonald's. In fact, the whole world, the whole Arabian Gulf, and I don't want to sound racist, but this is the reality. The Arabian Gulf, to them, London was like paradise on earth. Or you studied in London, you honeymooned in London. When they heard that the mayor of London is not a white British man who knows the values and history of this country and is a man of Pakistani descent, they lost respect for London. Why? Because Pakistanis don't have that position in the Arabian Gulf. If you've been there, you know what the situation is like.
No, yeah.
We don't want to sound racist, but this is the reality.
And then he says it plainly. Your government is not qualified to lead. From the mayor of London upward, he would not put Sadiq Khan in charge of a McDonald's branch, let alone the capital city. That is an imam saying it, not a tabloid. Coming up, he asks whether Britain should be closing madrasas, and watch how fast the answer comes.
The left are the real bigots, not the right. The left are the real racist bigots. It is them. The left, whenever they see a moderate Muslim or a peaceful Muslim who criticizes the majority of texts, they come and they say, oh no, a Muslim can't be like that. A Muslim is like Anjem Chaudhry. A real Muslim is like these radicals. So this guy must be a fake. Bash him. And what do we do about the radicals? Understand and tolerate them. They are the real bigots who in their minds believe that a real Muslim can't be a moderate. And this is what I've first-hand experienced.
You've experienced that from the left.
I call myself a peaceful man. Oh no, you're criticizing this book that calls for beheading people. So what do you want me to do? I want the Bukhari completely banned from universities. Why should it be used as a source for writing a thesis? Or
we have schools across this country that are having these books. Schools, junior schools.
Yes.
Junior children's schools, madrasas. Would you stop madrasas?
I stopped going to madrasas from the age of 12.
Would you stop madrasas in our country?
Of course.
You would, of course.
First day.
First day you'd close down madrasas.
I would. Day one. Because, I mean, nothing's hidden anymore. There have been spy cameras that have gone inside.
Yeah, we've seen what they're teaching. They're beating children.
There's nothing hidden. And these corruptions, I once upon a time used to teach them. I used to teach them once upon a time. So I know what's being taught as well.
So, what did we actually get here? An imam who agrees there will never be a reformation, who calls the most quoted scholars in Sunni Islam ideological terrorists, who wants Bukhari banned from British universities and the madrasas closed on day one. Every single thing the interviewer has been called a bigot for saying, said back to him from the other side of the table. And where they split is not principle, but nerve. The imam thinks Britain cannot stop the Gulf money. The interviewer thinks Britain will not. So which is it? Is he a realist who has run the numbers, or is the interviewer right that only hard limits change anything? Drop your thoughts in the comments.